Hans Frank started as a lawyer. He believed in structure, discipline, and the rule of law, until the law became a tool of tyranny. As Adolf Hitler's chief legal advisor, he helped lay the groundwork for the Nazi dictatorship. But his influence didn't stop in the courtroom. In 1939, Frank was given near absolute power over occupied Poland as Governor General. Under his authority, ghettos were established, deportations began, and millions were swept into the machinery of the Holocaust. He claimed to serve justice. But what he helped build was administrative genocide. And in the end, he stood before a court not as a jurist, but as a war criminal. Hans Frank was born on May 23, 1900, in Karlsruhe, Germany. He served briefly in the German army at the end of World War I and later studied law in Munich and Kiel. During the early 1920s, he became politically active and joined nationalist and right-wing movements. In 1923, Frank became a member of the German Workers' Party, which soon evolved into the Nazi Party, NSDAP. He participated in the failed beer hall putsch alongside Adolf Hitler and was briefly imprisoned. After his release, he resumed his legal education and began working as the party's legal counsel. Throughout the late 1920s and early 1930s, Frank's career grew as the Nazi Party gained momentum. He was instrumental in creating the legal frameworks that allowed the Nazis to dismantle the Weimar Republic's democratic structures. By 1933, when Hitler rose to power, Frank was appointed minister without portfolio and made head of the National Socialist Lawyers Association. He played a leading role in the Nazification of the German legal system, pushing laws that removed Jews and political opponents from the courts. Following the German invasion of Poland in September 1939, the country was divided. While the western regions were annexed directly into the Reich, the central and southeastern parts were formed into a new administrative unit, the General Government. Hans Frank was appointed Governor General of this region. This gave him wide-reaching civil and political authority over millions of Poles and Jews. He ruled from Krakow, issuing decrees that dismantled Polish institutions, shut down universities, and outlawed independent political activity. Frank also authorized the forced relocation of Jewish populations into ghettos, the confiscation of property, and the deployment of Polish laborers to Germany. Although not a military commander, Frank held full civilian control. He coordinated with SS officials, including Heinrich Himmler's personnel, to facilitate Nazi racial policies within the general government. He publicly described the Polish elite as a threat to the Reich and supported their removal, both socially and physically. Though Hans Frank did not personally oversee death camps, his administration was deeply involved in organizing mass deportations and ghetto management. He was aware of the purpose behind these deportations. In 1940, the Warsaw Ghetto was established under his jurisdiction. Over 400,000 Jews were confined in a small urban space under inhumane conditions. Frank's office controlled food distribution, labor quotas, and policing inside the ghettos. He also helped implement travel restrictions and property seizures that economically destroyed the Jewish population before physical extermination began. By 1942, Frank was fully aware of the final solution. Death camps like Treblinka, Belzec, and Sobibor operated within the general government. Although he later claimed to oppose the killings, there is no evidence he acted against them. In fact, deportations from ghettos continued under his administration until the Soviet army approached in early 1945, forcing him to flee Krakow. In early 1945, as the Soviet army entered Poland, Hans Frank fled Krakow and returned to Germany. He was arrested by American forces in May 1945 in Bavaria. Among his possessions were personal diaries and official documents, which would later become key evidence in his prosecution. Frank was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity at the International Military Tribunal in Nuremberg. His role as Governor General of occupied Poland made him responsible for the establishment of ghettos, mass deportations, and the exploitation of civilians. Initially, Frank denied knowledge of the Holocaust. But under pressure from documents and testimony, including his own writings, he admitted moral guilt and expressed remorse. He also claimed to have experienced a religious conversion while in prison. Despite this, the tribunal found that his leadership directly enabled Nazi crimes in Poland. His authority over civil administration made him responsible for the functioning of the Holocaust within the general government. On October 1, 1946, he was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging. In the early morning hours of October 16, 1946, Hans Frank was executed at Nuremberg prison alongside 9 other top Nazi officials. The executions were carried out in succession, with Frank being one of the last to be hanged that night. His final hours were spent in prayer and in consultation with a Catholic chaplain. Witnesses noted that he remained calm and composed, and that he declined to resist or protest as he was led to the gallows. As he stood on the platform, he made a short final statement. "I am thankful for the forgiveness I have received from God." His execution was quick. His body, like those of the other condemned men, was cremated and the ashes were secretly scattered in a river to avoid creating a physical site of remembrance. Hans Frank's legacy is closely tied to the administrative structure of genocide. Unlike many of his co-defendants, he was not a soldier or a direct commander of SS units. He was a lawyer, a governor, and a bureaucrat, yet millions suffered under the system he helped manage. His case demonstrated that genocide does not require a rifle in hand. It can be organized, facilitated, and legitimized through laws, paperwork, and political decisions. Frank's detailed wartime diaries, recovered at his arrest, have since become key historical documents. They reveal how Nazi policies were implemented in practice, and how high-level administrators perceived their own roles. In later years, excerpts from his writings were used in Holocaust studies and as evidence in educational institutions and memorial centers. Although he sought redemption in his final months, his transformation did not absolve his actions. His name remains linked to the destruction of Polish society, the Warsaw Ghetto, and the broader machinery of the final solution. In the context of the Nuremberg Trials, Hans Frank became a case study in how professional elites, lawyers, judges, and civil servants enabled and rationalized mass violence under the banner of legality. His trial and execution remain a turning point in the history of international justice, reinforcing the principle that administrative authority does not shield individuals from moral and legal accountability.